my life, so I hustle.
What's up, YouTube, and welcome to IT Hustle. In this series, we will be exploring the Blue Team Field Manual. I found this book helped me put things in perspective to develop the mindset and skill set someone should have in their tool belt on the defending side. It has several practical applications, which we will be exploring throughout this series. The majority of this content will be demonstrated on EvenG. Please note they are not sponsoring these videos, but I just wanted to give them a shout out because this is a great lab virtualization platform. Just had to be said, just saying. Video resources will be linked in the description if you want to check those out. So without further ado, let's dive in. In the first section, preparation, it shows us various documents and policies that should be in play to have an effective security game plan, from organization charge to NDAs. This is like the GRC chapter of the book, so I searched the web to get some examples of these, but these of course will vary from organization to organization. Okay, so the first preparation document was organization chart, so we'll pull up an example for that. So what is an organizational chart? An organizational chart is a diagram that visually conveys a company's internal structure by detailing the roles, responsibilities, and relationships between individuals within an entity. It's one way to visualize a bureaucracy, so we're talking the chain of command there. The next item was network diagrams. So a network diagram is a visual representation of a computer or telecommunications network. It shows the components that make up a network and how they interact, including routers, devices, hubs, firewalls, etc. So below we see a picture of a network diagram. Some contain like the actual IP addresses, so you know what devices are where logically. The next item is data flow diagrams. So data flow diagrams, also known as DFD. Data flow diagrams are used to graphically represent the flow of data in a business information system. DFD describes the processes that are involved in a system to transfer data from the input to the file storage and reports generation. Data flow diagrams can be divided into logical and physical. The logical data flow diagram describes the flow of data through a system to perform certain functionality of business. The physical data flow diagram describes the implementation of the logical data flow. So right above there's an example of a data flow, but you want to understand how, data flow transactions, say like you're doing POS, are coming in, going out, being stored, being logged, stuff like that. The next item is rules of engagement. Rules of engagement, detailed guidelines and constraints regarding the execution of information security testing. The ROE is established before the start of the security test and gives the test team authority to conduct defined activities without the need of additional permissions. So it's like, this is everything you can and can't do up front. Do not deviate from this document. Do not deviate from the rules of engagement. Okay, the next item on the list is incident response plan. The documentation of a predetermined set of instructions or procedures to detect, respond to, and limit consequences of a malicious cyber attacks against an organization's information systems. So in the event something malicious is going down, you're getting hacked, you're getting DDoSed, what exactly are you going to do? So you kind of be proactive on that and not run around like a chicken with your head cut off, and you have your run books and playbooks accordingly, and you take the appropriate action to, get on top of this incident. Next item on the list is business continuity plan. The documentation of a predetermined set of instructions or procedures that describe how an organization's mission or business processes will be sustained during and after a significant disruption. So, how do you keep the business going? What kind of redundancy do you have? Like, if you have a server and the power goes out, do you have battery backups, UPSs? The PSU goes out on the server. Do you have one power supply unit? Do you have dual power supply units? Because that would be redundant and contribute to the business continuity to continue the business. Just for one example. The next item on the list, disaster recovery plan. A written plan for processing critical applications in the event of a major hardware or software failure or destruction of facilities. So we're talking like earthquakes, buildings on fire, hurricane. How do we, recover and continue after this? So disaster recovery and business continuity are kind of closely related. If we're going back to like Security Plus studies, we're talking like hot, cold, and warm sites, things like that, for examples of disaster recovery planning. And next item on the list was required notification guidance. So this is coming from the Department of Health. So breach notification requirements. This is like from HIPAA. Following a breach of unsecured protected health information, covered entities must provide notification of the breach to affected individuals, the secretary, and in certain circumstances to the media. In addition, business associates must notify covered entities in a breach if a breach occurs at or by the business associate. So we're talking, who do you notify in the event of a data breach, depending on the type of data. So in this situation, we're talking PHI, and the compliance body for that is HIPAA. If we're talking like PII or financial information, for financial information, we're talking PCI DSS. So depends on the governing compliance body on that, but they're going to have their own regulatory standards for the notifications that should go out in the event of a breach. Next item on the list is physical access control, physical access requirements. So I pulled up physical access control systems from NIST, an electronic system that controls the ability of people or vehicles to enter a protected area by means of authentication and authorization and access controls. So we're going back to physical security. So we're talking bollards, so people can't just run their car into the building and get into the building. We're talking man traps. Only one person at a time can enter the building. Do we have those Honeywell badge systems so you can only get into the door if you buzz in, and you can lock it down by floor if your situation calls for that? So physical access requirements, good thing to consider. Next item is communication plan. What is a communication plan? So a communication plan is a policy-driven approach to providing company stakeholders with certain information. Communication plans are typically used in business settings to ensure all parties have the latest updates on projects, goals, and objectives. These are also critical aspects of both incident response and business continuity planning. So the crap hits the fan. Who do I call? Who do I talk to? A communication plan would be part of incident response and business continuity, so you know who needs to be notified to take appropriate action. So that's why this is important as well. So the next item was authority and legal conditions. Didn't really know where to go on this one, but I pulled up the Secret Service website. So if you're going to report an incident and want to get law enforcement involved on something like that, these are the things you would want to provide. So I've found this cool to look through if you want to check that out. Next item on the list is Threat Intelligence Summary. So I got Threat Intelligence Report, a prose document that describes TTPs, actors, types of systems, and information being targeted, and other threat-related information. So TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures. What sneaky stuff are these bad actors or threat actors doing to get past our security, to exploit our systems? What threats do we face? So we kind of get into threat modeling here, understanding the threats that your organization would face because of, what type of business you do and what type of threat actors you may attract, things like that. Next item that'll be covered is the physical security plan. That goes speaking back up to physical security requirements. We talked earlier about man traps, fencing, bollards, Honeywell badging systems, etc. Okay, moving on to risk assessment decision matrix. So risk assessment, the process of identifying risks to organizational operations, organizational assets, individuals, other organizations, and the nation resulting from the operation of an information system. Part of risk management incorporates threat and vulnerability analyses and considers mitigations provided by security controls planned or in place, synonymous with risk analysis. So one way to put risk analysis in perspective, got an example here. So this is a risk assessment matrix. So say you've got, what vulnerabilities you have, what threats your organization faced, to the infrastructure. So this is the likelihood of a threat being realized and the impact of said threat if it is realized. So if it's very unlikely and the impact is severe, it would be considered medium. Where if it's very likely and severe, it would be high. Then you can kind of gauge there, your vulnerabilities and such, and how they would impact the organization, and how you can prioritize which ones you want to button up. Next on the list is the MOA, MOU, and NDA. So MOA, Memorandum of Agreement. A memorandum of agreement is a written document describing a cooperative relationship between two parties wishing to work together on a project or to meet an agreed upon objective. An MOA serves as a legal document and describes the terms and details of the partnership agreement and is more formal than a verbal agreement, but less formal than a contract. Organizations can use an MOA to establish and outline collaborative agreements, including service partnerships or agreements to provide technical assistance and training. An MOA may be used regardless of whether or not money will be exchanged as part of the agreement. Okay, leading to MOU, Memorandum of Understanding or Agreement. A type of interagency, or National Guard agreement between two or more parties, which includes specific terms that are agreed to, and a commitment by at least one party to engage in action. It includes either a commitment of resources or binds a party to a specific action. So, these are just documented agreements between party A and party B. And the last one on the list, non-disclosure agreement, NDA. Non-disclosure agreement delineates specific information, materials, or knowledge that the signatories agree not to release or divulge to any other parties. So this would come into play like if you have secret clearance, you're working in the as a military contractor or for an agency or something, you got secret clearance, you shouldn't be running your mouth. You're working for a company that has some intellectual property they don't want to get out there. They may have you sign a non-disclosure agreement before they do business with you. And that's it for preparation. I did skip over some that I couldn't find, good visual representation to present, but all of these things fall under the GRC umbrella. Very key documents and procedures and workflows you want to have in place to be proactive, to have an effective, security program. Next time, we'll dive into the identify chapter. We'll get our hands on the keyboard and go through some practical uses that are outlined in the text. And all resources from this presentation will be included in the description of the video. And thank you for tuning in. I'll see you in the next video.
I want the finer things in my life, so I hustle.